in the state. Who has details?
Mostly healthcare professionals, Manuel say health and have so far presented no symptoms, while the 5 COVID-19 confirmed cases to the isolation centers for proper management. The process of contact tracing has begun to identify those who may have been exposed to them. To this end, Governor Emmanuel has declared a cessation of movement in the state within a period of 14 days.
There will be no movement of persons except those on essential duties who must carry a proper means of identification on them at all times. All business premises, markets, shops, motor parks, and offices must remain closed during this period.
In Uyo, Susan Asoko, NTA News.
From Akwa Ibom, we go to Ogun State live via Skype, and Lekon is standing by. Lekon, what is life like in Ogun State as the people prepare for lockdown? Okay, let me repeat my question. What is life like in Ogun State as the people prepare for lockdown?
Thank you, studio. The life here in Abeokuta, we can describe it as a rush hour. Indeed, we are around Itoku area, the commercial nerves of the capital city. This is the place by Kampala on daily basis. Particular movement within the metropolis is gradually reducing, while some areas are experiencing a mild lock as people ahead of the time. Shop stores go handing up activities in the homes, so they want to go back. They want to go home on time so that they can beat the deadline.
Lekon, I want to put across one more question to you. It's a record that Ogun State has 4 cases. What is the status of healthcare facilities in your state?
The good news about the state is that the number of COVID-19 cases are still in a single-digit bracket, and also the state government is not resting on its laurels, doing everything.
Thank you, Lekon. Thank you so much. We're going to go to the round now in our next report. While the federal government is working round the clock to contain the spread of the dreaded coronavirus, Katsina State government is also not left out in the direction as more preventive measures have been enforced to mitigate its impact. Members of the public have also keyed into the clarion call as interstate movement restriction policy imposed is being adhered to.
This is Kano Zindar Highway, which is one of the most busiest routes in northwestern parts of Nigeria. But the restriction order on vehicular movement directed by both federal and state governments to contain the spread of coronavirus, the once busy road is now deserted. All roads linking Katsina State and other parts of the country are manned by security personnel to monitor movement of persons into the state. Meanwhile, healthcare personnel in Katsina State embark on door-to-door sensitization on how residents can protect themselves against COVID-19.
We have decided to embark on these mobilizations to especially our staffs in general that are going to face these cases and also the general public to light them on the preventive measures on how to overcome and prevent themselves from contracting this type of diseases.
Already, the state government adopted measures to contain the spread of COVID-19 in Katsina State.
You're still watching Nationwide. Let's go over to Lagos where Jennifer is standing by with more stories from that end. Jennifer.
Thank you, Lydia. Now, when President Mohamed the total lockdown on Abuja and Lagos for a period of 2 weeks, it was to ensure strict compliance with the rule of social distancing, a practical measure that must be taken to stop further spread of COVID-19. However, during a drive-by on Friday, Becky Madujemu came upon shocking scenarios that exposed the restless nature of most Lagos residents.
The energy and vibe in Lagos Friday are at variance with footages of empty cities in overseas countries under lockdown projected by foreign cable news channels. More cars are on the roads. It was mind-boggling confronting pockets of gridlock at Rams. Even ambulances that may likely have feverish, breathless patients on board are no longer having an easy, breezy ride. Talking about ambulances, they now dot major roads in Lagos. My camera lens caught an ambulance driver helping out a few stranded hitchhikers. If you're wondering how safe it is to catch a ride on an ambulance right now, considering the risks involved, what would you say about this crowd on the sidewalk of the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway? Social distancing gone bizarre, you would certainly say. These are protesters clamoring for food. An angry spokesman alleged that executive members of Ikate Community Development Association are holding on to a truckload of food items due them.
This one of protest we say, if virus kill us na day, if hunger kill us na day, we come down here, virus no kill us, now hunger they won't kill us. For 3 days now, it be like 6 months. We don't get food to eat, then they will come outside.
The CDA chairman dismissed the allegation and assured that the protesters will get their fair share soon.
We met yesterday with a solid arrangement. They are bringing what we call a full support to the community. That will cover more than 2,000 plus families. When will that come? It will be tomorrow. We are making the arrangement.
As I moved far away from the dramatic location, I observed that enforcement was rather lukewarm. Some checkpoints were unmanned, while others were besieged by multiple queues of vehicles, with motorists taking turns to prove to overwhelmed enforcement agents that they are essential workers or have emergency situations at hand. I also discovered that commercial drivers are back in business, but tactically avoid checkpoints.
When we got to my check, they actually stopped our vehicle not to move anymore, the police. So we don't have any other option than to check, but I'm going to the bank. I just need the money.
From the look of things, the coming days would most likely be hectic in the metropolis. In Lagos, Becky Madujemu, NTA News.
Interesting. Now, the European Union has airlifted the first batch of French and German nationals, numbering 630 from the Muritala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos. Abolade Salami reports that the travelers passed through several screenings to confirm their health status before boarding.
Our international wing of Muritala Mohammed Airport recorded a bit of activities going to the exits of EU nationals from Germany and France.
Would all passengers traveling on flight FR3421 please have your boarding pass?
The profiling of travelers started with the verification of documents and screening of luggages to ascertain the authenticity of their papers under the supervision of German police and officials from the embassy. Meanwhile, travelers on board Air France were subjected to same processes of verification. However, information provided on the manifest reveals that Air France has 390 passengers on board, while Lufthansa Airline was carrying more than 230 passengers. In Lagos, Abolade Salami, NTA News.
And in spite of the lockdown, business activities are ongoing at the seaports. This is sequel to the federal government's directive that importation and exportation of goods are essential services that should be exempted from the restriction. Kenny Beluge reports.
Activities at the Apapa and Tican Island ports are central for the growth of the nation's economy. This is why they were exempted from the lockdown, considering the essential services they provide. This move by the government is also to avoid congestion at the ports. To ascertain the level of compliance, members of the Nigerian Shippers Council visited the ports for an on-the-spot assessment.
At the moment, we are operating with 30-40% of our staff strength, and we see a low level of deliveries.
Challenge is this: for freight forwarders who wants to make payments for services that we render, they are not able to do it. It's important for the financial institutions, in Apapa Port to be allowed to operate.
Executive Secretary, Nigeria's Shippers Council, told operators that arrangements have been made for operations at the ports to continue without hindrance.
We have initiated that and provided transport for critical workers at the ports, including freight forwarders, and they will use that transport to come in. We have also talked with some commercial banks, and they have cooperated.
Observers are of the opinion that with the measures put in place by government at the ports, importation and exportation at this period would be hitch-free. In Lagos, Ken Ibeluge, NTA.
Thank you, Ken. Nationwide continues after the break. Stay tuned.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
The coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, is spreading at an alarming rate all over the globe, including Nigeria. With the number of infected persons in Nigeria increasing daily, prevention is better than cure. Coronavirus has no cure. The virus spreads from one person who affects two persons, and by the time the affected person is isolated, the two persons have affected four, and it keeps spreading. You must take preventive measures to save yourself and that of the people around you. Always wash your hands with soap and water. Put distance between yourself and others. Whenever you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth. Clean and disinfect surfaces. Stay at home if you're sick and contact the proper authorities. Together, we can cut down the spread of the coronavirus. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest TV network.
Now believe this corruption. If you touch black man, if you like, gather the whole Niger, come together, make a cough. Nothing. Which one you want? Give me V&D. I mean, I get small pieces. How much you want to go? Give me 200. Take your change now. You know what I tell you?
My people, this coronavirus, na serious matter. When I wash your hands regularly, come use alcohol-based hand sanitizer. If you no see water, wash your hand. Make una sit down for house. You see this virus, so it no get leg. Now we dey waka kurukere. No wakara make the virus for die. No forget, say, the betterment of our people. Now for your handy day.
This message is from the Akin Fada'i Foundation in partnership with the National Orientation Agency with support from MacArthur Foundation.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
Thanks for staying with us. The FCT Minister of State, Ramatu Tijani Aliyu, has called on residents to ignore the rumor making the rounds on the social media platforms, claiming that over 100 patients of coronavirus are in Kubwa General Hospital receiving treatment. The minister, who made this call on a fact-finding mission through the hospital management, described the rumor as fake news. Ifeanyi Ezunda reports.
Emphasizing that it is a rumor taken to an extreme point, especially at this critical period. The FCT Minister of State, Ramatu Tijani Aliyu, stated that there are designated isolation centers where asymptomatic patients are kept in different parts of the territory, adding that her visit was not just fact-finding mission, but to restore confidence in the minds of the people.
We know that with your knowledge of what it is and the authority, and you will also not keep the COVID-19 cases in this facility. This such thing in the General Hospital, we have never relayed such information to anybody or to be told at any time by any person or any officer of this institution.
In a related development, the FCT Minister of State also visited the Kubwa market in Abuja. Ifeanyi Ezunda.
For most residents of rural communities in Suleja Emirate of Niger State, the stay-at-home order towards curtailing the spread and prevention of the coronavirus means little or nothing, as it is business as usual. Mukhtar Abubakar, who monitored the level of compliance in Suleja, Gurara, and Tafa local government areas, reports that the situation is worrisome to both health workers and the local authorities.
As at the time of filing this report, Niger State has not recorded any case of COVID-19. Compliance with preventive measures is necessary considering the proximity between some local government areas in the state and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, which has confirmed cases of coronavirus. Those most at risk are rural dwellers.
Coronavirus, we have not seen anybody to explain all this to us.
Even at the headquarters of the two local government areas, Suleja and Tafa, bordering the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, security operatives, in collaboration with the local vigilante groups, are finding it difficult to enforce the ban on the movement of people and vehicles. Heated arguments ensued between somebody who claimed to be a police officer with the security enforcing the movement ban in one of the checkpoints in Suleja. Some health workers advocate the need to further sensitize the people on the dangers and prevention of the COVID-19. Mukhtar Abubakar, NTA News.
Borno State government begins fumigation of worship places. For details of this and other reports, let's link up with Mohammed in our Maiduguri Network Center.
Thank you, Lydia, and welcome to Maiduguri. As part of preparedness to contain the spread of the dreaded global health pandemic, Borno State Environmental Protection Agency, BOSEPA, has embarked on fumigation of worship centers within Maiduguri Metropolitan Council and general local government areas of Borno State. Tawun Subukar reports.
This is one of the steps taken by the state government to ensure that the coronavirus pandemic does not find its way into the state. The fumigation of churches and mosques within Maiduguri, the state capital and environs, became necessary in view of its vulnerability due to close contact with people.
We felt it absolutely necessary to fumigate all the central mosques where we will do our Friday mosque, and other faiths is also inclusive.
Apart from the fumigation, we are now seeing into action of spraying, which we are going to use all our necessary sprayer, and we use all the germicide chemicals. Unfortunately for us, BOSEPA has a workforce of environmental health officers.
Other measures taken are in the areas of social distancing, in addition to sensitization.
No Keke Napep should take more than 2 passengers and 3 being with the rider. Royal Highness the Shah of Borno direct all the district heads and the village heads and the ward heads to create awareness.
This fumigation are part of measures by the Borno State government to ensure public places are safe for use. In Maiduguri, Yagum Subukar, NTN News.
The need for well-meaning Nigerians to continue rendering all forms of support towards fighting the spread of coronavirus has again been emphasized. This came up during advocacy and sensitization tour to IDP camps and secondary schools across Maiduguri, the state capital, by Borno State Command of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. Zodwa John Justini reports.
These are some of the measures put in place by NSCDC Borno State towards ensuring that hygiene is observed right from the entrance of the IDP's camp. Earlier, the command had carried out sensitization exercise at camps and other places harboring large number of people, as well as maintain social distance at all times. As part of its corporate social responsibility, the command has now provided hand-washing facilities at camp entrances for the IDPs with a view to prevent transporting the virus into the camp.
A total of 250 personnel of civil defense all over Borno State have been deployed. So here in Bakassi Camp, we have 50 of them here because of the large number. So apart from enforcing the order, we also want to enlighten them on personal hygiene.
Similar donation was also made at Government Day Secondary School, Meri, and Yerwa Government Girls Secondary School, Maiduguri. Principals of both schools thanked NSCDC for the donation and assured to use it for the good of the student and the teachers. The command's office is not left out in ensuring that safety of personnel is made a priority.
In a day, we get an average of 300 people that come to lodge complaint one way or the other. So these are parts of it. We sensitize them.
In Maiduguri, Kelwajon Jessini, NTN.
That is it from Maiduguri. Nationwide continues in Abuja.
Many thanks, Mohammed. Now, a good number of states of the Federation are free of the COVID-19. One of such states is Kwara State, but it shares boundaries with Oyo and Osun states that have recorded cases of the coronavirus pandemic. We now join via live telephone conversation the Health Commissioner of Kwara State, Dr. Raji Razak. Thank you for joining us on Nationwide.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, now, how proactive is the state in ensuring that COVID-19 does not get to Kwara State?
Yeah, as part of preventive measures taken by Kwara State government under the leadership of Malam Abdullah Governor, is to inaugurate COVID-19 technical committee that has been headed by the Deputy Governor, who is the chairman of COVID-19 technical committee. And myself, as Honorary Commissioner for Health, I'm the chairman one of the COVID-19 technical committee. And we have also that matter as that chairman two. Then we have a secretary from the other side. One of the preventive measures we have taken is to ensure that we have a partial lockdown in the state, so that the commercial vehicles are not moving, Okada riders are not going out, then are not going, the vehicles are not going out. But we allow private vehicles to be moving. Then we ask them to observe social distances, so that only two passengers can be at the back. Then we close our borders. Okay. We don't want to go moving. We have closed our borders, except vehicles are carrying food items and medical supplies or medication. Those are the vehicles that can enter to our borders. We close our borders because we have countries. We submitted, we have with the state, we have with the zone, so we close our borders. That is not enough. We've increased our community sensitization and clinician sensitization as well. Then the government, the Kwara government, has made available personal protective equipment, face masks, hand sanitizers, and PPE generally to people within the community. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go on.
So PPEs and hand sanitizers, liquid soap for people, and the civil servants have been asked to work from home, to stay at home and work from home. our schools have been shut down.
Okay.
Both from primary school, secondary school, and even higher institutions. All of them are home.
All right.
People that are working from home.
Okay, thank you.
We are already transitioned to our family.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that situation report from your state on your preparedness to prevent COVID-19 from entering Kwara State. Thank you so much. We've been talking to the Health Commissioner of Kwara State, Dr. Rajiv Razak. Thank you. Now, the activation of the virology laboratory of the Alex Ekweme Federal Teaching Hospital, Abakaliki, for COVID-19 testing by the federal government has received widespread commendation from Ebonyi people. Nneka Okoye reports that the additional measure has further bolstered the people's confidence in the APC-led administration to end the COVID-19 pandemic.
In response to the fast increasing number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the country, the federal government expanded the number of diagnostic centers with the capacity to conduct the tests. With the expansion, the virology unit of the Alex Ekweme Federal Teaching Hospital, Abakaliki, becomes one of the 7 testing centers for the coronavirus in Nigeria.
This will go a long way to reduce the anxiety that may arise following suspicion. Is covering the whole of Southeast and South, if need be.
The Chief Medical Director, Dr. Emeka Oka, applauded efforts of the government at all levels in combating the dreaded disease, especially with the new laboratory in the state. He emphasized the importance of personal hygiene as recommended by health bodies.
But it's possible there might be people who may be having the feeling that where to go or how to have access to it. So it's really good that it should be in Ebonyi State. It's a good development to hear this.
Federal government and state governments, they are working hard to make sure that these ravaging epidemics should not, penetrate in some other states.
According to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, work is in progress in Maiduguri, Sokoto, Kano, Kaduna, Jos, and Port Harcourt for additional testing centers. In Abakaliki, Nneka Okoye, NTA News.
Our next report from Dutse says there are indications that many public places located in rural areas of Jigawa State have not been adequately equipped or enlightened on the preventive measures against the deadly coronavirus pandemic. Mansour Aliyu Hassan reports that this is not unconnected to nonchalant attitude exhibited by the people in one of the weekly markets he visited to find out how social distancing policy is being observed.
Located about 7-kilometer drive from Dutse, Laraba, as it is popularly known, is the only major market in the capital city of Jigawa State. Apart from serving its host community, the market is the only alternative to about 6 towns and many villages, including those from the neighboring Kano State. One may think this minor gridlock may be a stumbling block to the weekly ritual of hustle and bustle of buyers and sellers at the popular Laraba market, which is not unconnected with the restriction of movement from one state to another, imposed due to the outbreak of coronavirus pandemic. A visit to the market reveals that there was near or total absence of any sign that indicates there is an emergency situation which requires serious attention. There was little or no provision for any preventive measure against the virus in case there is an outbreak.
The major problem we are facing here is that the people from the rural areas are totally ignorant of what is happening. If left at home, some of the preserve items will be gone.
Jigawa is among the many states in the country where there was no reported cases of COVID-19. However, adequate preventive measures are being taken to safeguard the citizens from contracting. Many are of the view that total lockdown of all public places will be the only solution to the fear associated with COVID-19. In Dutse, Mansour Aliyu Hassan, NTA News.
Governor Samuel Otom has charged council chairmen and traditional rulers to be highly committed in sensitizing their communities and ensuring compliance with all directives regarding the prevention of the spread of coronavirus pandemic. The governor stated this at the maiden meeting with members of the local government COVID-19 Action Committee at Government House in Makurdi. Charles Abba was there.
Governor Samuel Otom, who says his administration places high premium on the health and safety of the lives of the people, emphasizes that COVID-19 disease is no respecter of persons, as many high-profile personalities have tested positive to the virus. The governor maintains that all hands must be on deck to curb the spread of the virus.
I have declared 1 month fasting and prayer against this virus.
While various traditional rulers laud the state government's efforts in mitigating the escalation of the disease, the chairman, Benue State Traditional Council, Professor James Ayase, who calls for palliative measures for the less privileged in the state, says that he has continued to address his subjects on precautionary measures against the pandemic.
We have some concerns at the rural areas. A lot of our sons and daughters are coming back home from areas that are damaged.
The inaugurated local government COVID-19 Action Committee has levels of council, kindred, and streets. Charles Abba, NTA News.
Religious bodies are complementing government efforts in the containment of coronavirus pandemic. We have in the studio Ustaz Abubakar Siddiq, an Islamic scholar, to throw more light on this. Now, sir, first of all, thank you for coming on Nationwide.
You're welcome.
Now, what is the Islamic stand in matters of compliance with government directives for the lockdown?
All you who believe, obey Allah and obey the messenger and obey those among you who are in authority. The interpretation of those who are in authority are the Islamic scholars and those that are in authority in government. Now, when things like this come, the best the scholars would do is to listen to the experts on those issues, as we have been doing, listening to the doctors in their various expertise and fields of medicine. Whatever they say, the scholars will not put that with what the texts are saying and give directives, and that is what they have done. They listen to the doctors have said it, and of course, with regards to COVID, it's like proving what has been established in Islam for a very long time. It is there. Any religious text you open that discusses jurisprudence in Islam, the first topic is cleanliness. It speaks about cleaning yourselves, getting ready for worship, because you are going to communicate with your maker. Wash your hands properly, wash your face. Faces, anything that is apparent on your body should be washed properly. We do that 5 times a day, even without COVID. And the place must be clean, your clothing must be clean, so that your heart will be clean. So washing hands, social distancing, and whatever, the scholars listened to the experts and they gave their verdict.
Okay, now, there are some pockets or reports, especially in the rural areas, where some worshippers in mosques still converge to perform the obligatory prayers. What is your take on
They are not working with the Quranic verse that I quoted at the beginning of my speech. Follow, obey Allah, obey His messenger, and obey those among you who are in authority. Nobody is saying you are not going to pray. No, you pray in your houses. You pray as you normally do. Whoever is used to going to the mosque to pray, the 5 obligatory prayers and the Jumu'ah prayer that today we have not observed in Abuja, but we have actually, but for coronavirus, we would have gone to the mosque and prayed, and therefore our recompense rests with Allah completely, as if we have been there, but for it we would have been.
Now, I think you've said it all. Thank you for coming on Nationwide. We've been talking to Ustaz, Ustaz Abubakar Siddiq, an Islamic scholar. Thank you for the insight you've given to us. Now we're going to Ibadan. Rural awareness on coronavirus, and Kemi is standing by there. Hello, Kemi.
And welcome to Ibadan. The increasing number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the country on a daily basis calls for check on how informed people are about the pandemic and possible preventive measures. Correspondent Ken Yoshin visited some rural communities in Oyo State to assess their level of awareness and compliance to experts' advice on coronavirus pandemic.
Several jingles and enlightenment programs on television and radio have no doubt created a high level of awareness on the pandemic and its spread, even in rural communities, as observed in Egbeda local government.
Since we should wash our hands with soap, and then wash our hands with
and when we are out, we should give a distance.
This is Egbeda Market in Egbeda, a suburb of Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. The people here seem to be living in total disregard of expert advice on curtailing the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. Clusters of people in the market, number of passengers in most of the commercial vehicles, with the fact that no visible hand-washing facility anywhere in the community indicates for a level of compliance to preventive measures to the spread of COVID-19.
They were aware, but are they going to stay indoor to die? They said hunger kills more than COVID-19.
The situation is a bit different in the suburb community of Oludo, where most businesses have closed to comply with the stay-at-home order to curb the spread of COVID-19. Traditional head of the community also complimented efforts of government in ensuring the people follow the laid-down guidelines.
According to what the government gave to everybody, we are washing our hands, sanitize, and then cleaning all surrounding our compound.
Residents in suburb are advised not to leave anything to chance in ensuring that the coronavirus pandemic does not spread to their community. In Ibadan, Ken Yoshin, NTA News.
The Oyo State government has appealed to well-meaning Nigerians to support his social responsibility scheme at meeting the yearnings of millions of the downtrodden who are experiencing difficulty during this period of COVID-19. The State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Bashir Bello, made this appeal while receiving some relief materials and medical facilities from butchers in the state. Correspondent Rofia Animation Badmus has details.
The items delivered to Oyo State government by the butchers at the Central Abattoir in Ibadan include 100 adjustable hospital beds, 50 mattresses, bedside furniture, and 100 mosquito nets. According to the leadership of the butchers, the contribution was necessary because everyone should join government in the fight against COVID-19.
See this as a corporate social responsibility on our part to help Oyo State in this hour of need.
Oyo State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Bashir Bello, expressed the state government appreciation for the gesture and called on other well-meaning individuals and organizations to emulate the butchers.
In our efforts and appeal to the good people of Oyo State, we are seeing a very good response.
Meanwhile, the state government has started distributing items such as buckets, hand sanitizers, and liquid hand washing soap to different local government areas in the state. In Ibadan, Rafia Animashan Badmus, NTA News.
And that's it from Ibadan. More reports after the break. Just stay with us.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, cutting into a shoe or elbow, and strictly adhering the infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Before now, no visual impaired have actually used the first class here. And most times it's not because they are not that intelligent or hardworking, it's just because they lack basic amenities of study. Being visually impaired, for every effort a sighted person puts in, you have to put at least double of it.
13 lives.
Spread is when infected people sneeze and cough. Small droplets of fluid expelled by cough or sneezes are laced with viruses looking for new respiratory tracts to infect. When a sick person sneezes around someone who is healthy, the virus can land in the nose, mouth, or even the eyes, causing an infection. Symptoms can include fever, cough, shortness of breath. Symptoms may appear within 2 to 14 days. Seek medical advice if you develop symptoms and have been in close contact with a person known to have COVID-19, or if you live or have recently been in an area with ongoing spread of COVID-19. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Welcome back. Kano State government has taken drastic measures to prevent the importation of COVID-19 into the state. Yahanasu Hassan Barau reports that Assistant Inspector General of Police Zone 1, Abubakar Sadiq Bello, visited one of the Kano boundaries to monitor the level of compliance to the directives of border closure by the state government.
This is Kwanakawaki, one of the borders linking Kano to other parts of the country. The boundary looks busy with commuters looking disturbed, unmindful of the social distancing the World Health Organization has been advocating for. Falal Musa is one of the travelers who is coming from neighboring states, was restricted from passing the border.
Kaduna has been relaxed. So I took that opportunity to visit a grandmom here.
Like Falalu, many commuters were not allowed access by the Joint Task Force of Security Operatives, while those carrying essential commodities were screened by health officials to prevent infiltration of the pandemic into the state. The Assistant Inspector General of Police Zone 1, Abubakar Sadiq Bello, on an inspection visit, expressed satisfaction on how security agencies are discharging their duties.
We are supposed to be very professional. So if an officer did not perform his job professionally, definitely a repercussion.
In Kano, Yohannes Hassanbaro, NTA News. In Kano, Yohannes Hassanbaro.
To beneficiaries of conditional cash transfer in the state, Musa Abubakar, who was at the flagging of payment at Tambuwal, reports.
Investment program thought they had to wait longer for their next payment. This is not to be for the beneficiaries of conditional cash transfers, as Addis Umar and others who received 2 months' payment expressed satisfaction for the development. to commence 2 months pay of cushioning the tight restrictions on socio-economic activities due to the coronavirus pandemic.
To commence payments of the for now, we are paying the beneficiaries for the first phase, 10,000 naira.
With more than 3,000 beneficiaries in the state, the payment is part of efforts to make social distancing more effective among citizens. In Sokoto, I am Musa Abubakar, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the conditional cash transfer to the most indigent and vulnerable in the country by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development has entered its second day with a simultaneous rollout in Anambra, Katsina and Nasarawa states. In a statement, the Special Assistant on Media to the Minister says the Minister, Sadia Umar Farouk, had earlier approved the cash transfers to beneficiaries in the country. The payment was part of the immediate palliatives promised by President Muhammadu Buhari as to cushion the effects of the partial lockdown of the country as part of measures to contain the COVID-19. And now sports with Tamara Ebiwe.
If you feel unwell, have a fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, don't panic. Seek medical attention of local health authority near you.
Athletes Commission of the Nigeria Olympic Committee has been commended by the International Olympic Committee for their initiative in creating awareness on the COVID-19 pandemic using the voice of Nigerian athletes. The video message was used on social media platforms by Athlete 365 and Olympic Channel. President of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach, said Nigeria was the first country to do so and encouraged other national Olympic committees to replicate Nigeria. Please, you are well. Stay safe. Meanwhile, National Association of Nigerian Women in Sports, NAWIS, has also joined the sporting world to show deep concern on the pandemic ravaging the world. The association president, Professor Bola Adeyanju, advised its members to adhere to the health tips from appropriate authorities, as well as reaching out to athletes and officials. Stay safe. In the meantime, African football legends Didier Drogba and Samuel Eto'o have condemned comments by two French doctors who proposed that Africa be used for the experimental treatment of any potential vaccine or cure. In their different reactions on Twitter, both football stars who said Africa is not a test laboratory described the comment as humiliating and racist expressions, calling on African leaders to protect citizens. With sports update, Tamara Ebiwe, NTA News.
And that concludes Nationwide. Thank you for being a part of it. I am Lydia Odije Ochi. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.